Hey everyone, welcome. I cannot begin to tell you how excited I am that you're here tonight. We practically broke GoToWebinar. So many people signed up. That's how big this event is. And the reason is I know you're hungry for information, for good information. So we are glad you are here. And in just a few minutes, I'm Bill DeWeese. So I'll give you a little more formal introduction as well as our special guest tonight, but would love to get a feel for who is here and where you're from. And I can see it's beginning to fill up now. Last I checked, we had over 1,200 folks who were signed up to be here. So if you would, just in the question box, don't put a question, but just put where your name and where you're from. We'll get a sense of how far-reaching this webinar is going to be tonight.
I got it. Fred Glick here with Bill DeWeese and Buddy from North Carolina and Lamar from Hollywood, California, Rocky from Texas. And then we got Carmen from Vermont, Adam from Toronto, Antonio from Mexico, Nancy from Baltimore, Cam from Toronto. We got some Canadians showing up. I think it's because David is a Canadian himself. And by the way, welcome to our country. He's not here yet, but I'm going to welcome. Randy Scott, where's Randy from? Jonathan from San Diego. Evie, where's Evie from? Evie's from Pennsylvania. Terrell from Reno. Man, they're from all over. I want to see who's from farthest away. Anyone, put your name in here if you're from out of the country, like out of North America. I grew up in the Philippines. Anybody from the Philippines here? Any? Montreal, New Jersey. I guess Kevin is considered.
You may have to dig deep.
London, Ontario. Bahamas. There, Lamar's from Bahamas. Okay. Brendan, but he grew up in Sydney. I grew up in Argentina. Lucas, okay, I grew up in Ireland. There we go. I mean, I'm gonna mangle this Gaelic name. They're from all over, Bill. Really.
Well, and for our European friends and those who are a little later, thanks for being here. Especially thanks for being here tonight. Also, I'm very curious. We just kind of get a cursory scan of number one. Are you new to voiceover? Maybe let's look at three. You're either new. Pardon?
How about let's do it in three numbers. Number one if you're new, number two if you've been doing it a while, and three if you're a veteran. So a one, a two, and a three. One, I see a lot of ones, a couple twos, 1, 3, a lot of ones, a 3, twos. Mostly, if I were guessing, I would say this audience is 80% new, 10%, 15% for a while, and the 1.5. Who's that? David, good job. That was good.
Degrees.
Yeah, I like it very much. So mainly we have an audience that is mainly new to voiceover. Some people have been over a while, and some people at 3 have been here a long while. And Tom, Celia came in with a 1.5 as well. Okay, good. So we're getting close to the top of the hour, Bill. Why don't you get ready for the drum roll?
All right. If we had a drummer, we would have a drum roll, please. However, use your imagination. And I believe we're hitting the top of the hour right now. It is 8 o'clock at 8 o'clock Central Time. So welcome.
I'm sending a webcam request to our featured guest here.
Okay. By way of introduction, my name is Bill DeWeese, and just very briefly, the way this, and there he is, and I'll give him his formal introduction in just a moment. But I'm in the process of teaching a 4-week online voiceover class, and we thought, wouldn't it be awesome if we could get a special guest, somebody who really sees the industry from a very high view, who could really give us a sense of what it's all about, where it's going. And so that's how tonight came about. And then we thought, heck, why just limit it to the class? And so we just opened it up to all of you guys. And we're so excited that you're here. And one of the reasons I'm so excited about tonight is I began my voiceover journey back in 2006. And I remember what it was like of not understanding, not knowing what was going on, trying to figure out my way and bumping my head against a lot of walls, figuratively, along the way. And I remember one of the first places that I found that gave me a glimmer of hope was this website called voices.com. And I signed up and I immediately began auditioning. And nothing really happened there for a little while. And again, I'm trying to figure out what's going on. And then all of a sudden, I'll never forget it. My very first voiceover job came through voices.com. And I won't forget what it was. It was a 2-page on hold script that paid $200. And for me, it was like I won the lottery. And it wasn't even the money. What it was is it flipped a switch in my head because I had so many doubts. And once I got that first job, all of a sudden I thought, if one person's willing to hire me, I bet there's a second person out there. And here, 14 years later, thousands and thousands of jobs, and voices.com has played a big role in that. And so I just want to share that, David. Thank you for what you've done. But our special guest tonight is the man at the helm, the leader, the CEO of voices.com, David Ciccarelli, who has had a major impact in leveraging technology to provide opportunities for people like you and me to do what we do. So without further ado, let me turn it over to David Ciccarelli. Thanks, David.
Awesome. Thanks, Bill. I really appreciate the intro, and the honor is mine to be here with all of you tonight. Just affording me the opportunity to give kind of a state of the industry. How is it all playing out? What's new? And then how I see things from my perspective. And then near the end, kind of talk about kind of what the future looks like as well too. So let's go right into the presentation. I think we're going to do some Q&A at the end as well too. Encourage you, if you have questions along the way, use the chat in the sidebar, and I think both Fred and Bill will answer those either in real time or we'll tee them up for the end. So let's go into it. So today's session at a glance, I'm just gonna, for those who you may be new to voices.com or I haven't had the pleasure of spending a whole lot of time with, I'm just gonna quickly give the founding story, because I think you'll hear that I have the same roots that many of you do. A passion for the industry and space. And then a recent history, going back a couple years now, some significant milestones. I'll show you some kind of newspaper headlines, if you will, from there. We'll talk about the key players in the space. How have they changed? What's different? How do they continue to have influence within the industry? And you should be paying special attention to that. And then last year we did a couple things. We have, of course, as you can imagine, a lot of data about how the business is working in terms of job postings that go through voices.com, what clients are looking for. So we're going to pull that apart, and I'm gonna break down what's hot right now, the types of voices that are hot. So if you don't have demos in some of these categories, I would really encourage you to think about that as well too. Some of the overall key trends, and then of course, as I mentioned, the future as well too. So that's the session. So our founding story, you know, I grew up, you know, with the fascination for sound. You know, my mom had an old record player. I'd listen to the spoken word recordings. Yes, a lot of music by the Beatles, but mostly spoken word recordings. I love that. Dad had this shortwave radio where I could tune in to radio stations from all around the world. And whenever I kind of made contact with, with somebody kind of speaking a foreign language, it was almost like making foreign contact with like some indigenous people group. I just felt like I was connecting in some way, listening in and hearing these voices as well too, not being sure what they said, but fascinated nonetheless. Fast forward a number of years, I was able to borrow some recording equipment, you know, as a musician, played drums and piano, and then I borrowed some recording equipment actually from our church, and started kind of tinkering with recording, and recorded our band, and that kind of led to questioning, what am I going to do after graduating high school, if you will? What's this post-secondary going to look like? And I found a program called at a school, an audio engineering program called at a school called the Ontario Institute of Audio Recording Technology. It's called OIART is how it's pronounced. It's based here in London, Canada. It was a one-year, very intensive program. And I remember on the first day, the head of the school gets up in front of the class of, you know, all these newbies and rookies, and he had two things in his hand. One hand, he holds up this tennis ball, and he goes, and the other hand, he had this microphone. He goes, if you don't know the difference between a tennis ball and a microphone, don't you worry. I know you're nervous. I'm going to teach you everything, and this program is going to teach you everything. And there's this like collective sigh of relief. He's standing in front of this 128 Neve console. For those of you who know, 128 channel Neve, like it was intense. So that was kind of what launched it. I ate that up. I literally read the entire textbook I was about 300 pages of audio recording technology in the first like week, and just soaked it all up. When I graduated though, I opened a small recording studio of my own and got my name in the local newspaper on my birthday of all days. And that's when I met my now wife, of course, Stephanie. And Stephanie Ciccarelli is not only and a huge advocate of the talent community here, but also she's a co-founder in the company. So I met her because she was a singer. She would sing at weddings, funerals, special events, and she came into the studio to record her singing repertoire because her mom saw this newspaper article. And we ended up doing recordings together, but because of that same newspaper article, not only did I meet my wife and marry my first customer, I also actually had the opportunity to do some other voiceover work that came in. There were small businesses that wanted some radio commercials, phone systems. They all wanted a female voice. Well, clearly I couldn't do that, so I gave Stephanie a call. I said, do you think you can come down and read this page of copy? I'll be the engineer, you be the talent, and we'll be in business together. So that is not dating or marital advice, but nonetheless, I think it worked out pretty well for us and our family. And we ended up doing a lot of work together to the point we said, hey, we should actually, I wanted to pivot this from this running this small recording studio into putting up a really primitive version of a website. And so I should mention that Stephanie and I worked together for a number of years, working kind of freelance. And we realized, hey, if we're able to do this, and the site that we put up started attracting other freelance voice talent from all around the world, people who spoke different languages, they would find this website and they say, you only have one female talent on there. You seem, I see your site come up time and time again. Do you need somebody who speaks, Spanish or German? Do you need somebody who does commercial work or has a New York accent? And we always just said yes. And that's really how it all began, concurrently with kind of listing a number of talent on voices.com, or what would ultimately become voices.com. We actually concurrently had clients that would reach out to us and say, how do I get in touch with this person? I see a link to an audio player, I can hear them, can you connect me? And that was this proverbial aha moment of, why don't we get out of the business ourselves of kind of doing voiceovers ad hoc? And Steph was always more of a singer than a voice talent. And I was, an engineer and really had a passion for building websites. I just loved anything related to the internet. And so we did what's called in Silicon Valley the pivot. And that means you're kind of moving from one thing and take what you have and reinvent it. And so we had an idea of, what if we could really build an online marketplace. We were big fans of eBay. That was kind of the big marketplace at the time. What if, instead of connecting buyers and sellers for physical goods, we would connect buyers and sellers for services, and that service being voiceover, which we thought was really simple because it was just one audio file. And it wasn't like recording in a big studio where you have like this 12-piece orchestra band. Instead, it was simply kind of, as people could work from home. And so that was kind of the emergence of, and really the beginning of voices.com, which, to be honest, guys, is the same business that we've been running for, goodness, going on almost 15 years now. So in some ways, not a lot has changed from that kernel of an idea to just sticking with it over all this time. Now, the more recent history that some of you might be aware of and more familiar with is, we've, reading the news headlines here, what I've seen is an industry that's just racing toward the future, and that's presenting a lot of new opportunity for talent. When we, work with other financiers and institutions and a lot of partners, one of the things that's always asked is, well, how big is this market? And so we often have to do what's called a total addressable market, assessment, which is like sizing up how much opportunity is out there. And so the more times we've done this, we've kind of come around this number of around $4 billion, the globe for global voiceovers. Of course, that's spread all around the world in 160 countries or so. But the fact is, it's still predominantly done in major production centers. But the work is absolutely everywhere, and increasingly so, it's being procured online. So I think we reached to a certain point where we were growing the platform, reached over 500,000 users as in terms of a milestone, and decided that one of the best things that we wanted to do is actually move beyond just non-union freelancer work and kind of continue to move up market. And so we had this idea of, what if we could get into the union voiceover workspace, work with celebrities, bring talent agencies onto voices.com. And Stephanie and I actually lived in Silicon Valley for a while, and then actually in New York City. And I met with all the talent agents, literally pounding the pavement, going up and down Madison Avenue and Broadway and so forth, and pitched this idea. If we could get you more union work, would you join on voices.com? A lot of people said yes at the time. And I thought, well, if there's interest there, what if we could, really kind of fold in or roll together the biggest player in the space, and that was VoiceBank. And we were always huge admirers of Jeff Hickson, the founder of VoiceBank. We flew out to Los Angeles and asked if we would be interested in partnering. And then I floated the idea, what about if you think we would maybe acquire VoiceBank and kind of merge the two companies together? So with his interest in that, we set out about raising the capital and to actually acquire VoiceBank. And so, on planes, trains, and automobiles, once again, Stephanie went on a roadshow. And so that means that, we're pitching really investors who might want to invest in Voices. There have been a number of folks that have been interested over the years. And so we reached out to all of them, set up meetings, and ultimately we're able to raise $18 million from Morgan Stanley, a global investment bank. And part of the use of proceeds, part of the reason that we were, received that investment was to acquire VoiceBank. Now, of course, that caught the industry's attention. I think there was a lot of excitement there for the possibilities, and maybe, dare I say, there was a lot of concern and maybe even fear for what it would mean if we would wind down the site, if it meant there would be no more union work. The intention was always to kind of fly one flag, and bring these brands together under the name voices.com. However, I think that we plan maybe call it a year or a 2-year kind of slow migration over. There was just candidly so much confusion during those early days. Clients didn't know where to post their jobs. Talent wanted to get on VoiceBank. Agents didn't know if they should be on both sites or not. And we just decided, look, let's accelerate our timeline. It'll be a clearer message if we can bring these two platforms together, and I'll ultimately have one website to build and innovate on. And the more modern web platform was at voices.com. So that's how that all rolled out. We were in communication with all the agents, all the casting directors, and the union, the Screen Actors Guild as well too. And we continue to be in great dialogue with them from time to time as needed. So that is kind of the shortest version of the story, and perhaps I can go into detail another time, but that's how it all played out. And I think that was really a turning point for two things, wondering, okay, well, what's next? How do we continue to grow? And I think what we found was the newest technologies that are out there, like smart speakers and digital assistants. And there was a lot of excitement a number of years ago on this, predominantly because Amazon, it was Black Friday, I believe in 2018, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, practically gave these smart speakers away, the Amazon Echo that had the Alexa on it. And that smart speaker, I think it was like $19 or $29, and everybody was just eating them up. It became kind of the stocking stuffer of the season as well too. And Amazon got up to 100 million installs of these devices. Now, developers and brand marketers are always going to go wherever the people are. And so with 100 million devices installed, very quickly, people started developing voice apps for these smart speakers. And the challenge was that there was really only one voice available, and that was the Alexa voice. And I'm not trying to diminish Google Assistant and kind of the Google Home, but just for the sake of conversation, what we heard was that a lot of big brands realized that they were allowing the Amazon Alexa voice to speak for them. And that made them actually very uncomfortable that the Alexa was being kind of their audio ambassador, if you will. It was their gateway into how they worked. And so increasingly over the last number of years, what we've seen is still voice apps being built and kind of more slowly adopted, but big brands, they're creating their own custom experiences. Some want to create their own synthetic voice. They don't want something generic. Let's just put it that way. So they might be creating a synthetic voice, but it's just for them. Or they actually want all the lines read out, kind of like a choose your own adventure. That's often how these voice apps are built, where it's read line by line, frankly, similar to a very complex IVR. That's actually what it looks like on the back end. And all in all, when we actually commission some research with and partner with probably the leading research and publisher in the space, if you want to be up on the latest around all things synthetic voice, smart speakers, digital assistants, go to voicebot.ai. Brett Kinsella is a genius. He is super deep into this space, really well connected, and constantly is publishing news and information about the space. That's where I learn from. I subscribe to all of his stuff. And I thought that would be a great partnership for us to actually commission some research to go to a panel of consumers and ask them in kind of a blind listening test, do you prefer human versus synthetic? And then look at things like information retention. And overall, people retain information twice as much when a voice actor speaking, and they also prefer, a person, an actor, breathing like life into the script. There's frankly no comparison. And so I can go more on that later, but I think what the conclusion is, it was a way that businesses can start exploring the space, but I think they ultimately want to own their own experience, and their own voice experience. And that kind of was just best encapsulated in this headline where we were featured, as well as a number of your fellow voice actors, in an article by the BBC, that there's just this enduring magic about the voice actor, the ability to create emotion that wasn't there before. And as I've often said, breathing life into the script. So that's kind of the more recent past. But what is clear to me is that the industry has been in a shift for actually a very long time, but it's been accelerated not only in the last 2 years, but certainly in the last 2 months. And I can speak more to that. I mean, really what's been happening is that the old construct, which is certainly relevant and continues to have a very big presence in huge geographic centers like New York, Chicago, and LA, it's having less influence because the clients are actually everywhere. And so there's a way that work gets done there, and I'll speak to some of those industry players, but that is becoming less the norm, is what I would say. And in fact, increasingly, clients are discovering how to hire a voice actor online. And so what we looked at was the old way, if you will, that's been around since the last 50, 60 years, where a producer would need to navigate this series of relationships of their advertising agency, then going out to a casting director, and the casting director would, send out these casting calls to maybe 5, 6, 10 agencies. That agency would often get a time slot of maybe 15 minutes that they could put forward 3 actors. So the agency would need to down select to those 3 actors that then they would put forward to the casting director in-person audition session. Of course, there would be an engineer. Sometimes the client would be there in person, but all of that, I mean, a casting director in New York is somewhere between $1,000 and $1,500 a day. It makes sense for big national broadcasts, or if you're working with a celebrity, or if that's what the client really wants. They want someone with the golden ears to help make that selection. As I said, increasingly that is not only what's not needed. Clients are under budget constraints, time constraints, and of course now physical proximity constraints. So that has just ushered in this huge increase in demand through platforms like voices.com and many others of how do we continue to get this work done, but have it done online. So the key players, then I mentioned a few of them already, and I'll go over them because these are all still people that you need to know. Now, I would argue that you may not need to necessarily be in a physical geographic center where historically everyone kind of congregated. Now, so much of that activity is done remote. And I will start off with actually the client who's in the middle of this. I mean, clients are really all around the world. they often range from, I would say, agencies who then have their own clients. So agency is almost like a one step removed. And then there's the kind of end client. Now, agencies are great to know, advertising agencies, that is, because they're dreaming up the creative, they're controlling the campaign, they're pitching new ideas. So they're great, great folks to be in touch with. And it's often a creative producer or a creative director at the ad agency. Then there's the end client themselves, and they can range from small businesses, like Bill mentioned right off the top, a small business that that might just want a couple pages of copy done, all the way up through to large Fortune 500 or Global 2000s type companies with tens of thousands of employees. And they can be doing, yes, certainly maybe still commercial work, but what maybe is not as much known is, for all the radio and TV commercials, that's only about 10% of the market. The other 90% are what have historically been called industrials. It's kind of this like business recordings. It's less glamorous, but boy, I tell you, it's certainly, there's a lot of money in it, and there's a lot of work, a lot of volume of work. And when I look at those two factors, that certainly speaks to opportunity. And big companies are actually creating in-house creative services groups. And so it's almost like an in-house agency. I've been to some of the, not just Silicon Valley companies, but large pharmaceutical companies, financial institutions. They have studios in-house to shoot videos for social media, whether they're to work with, whether it's a product manager and they're launching something, or it's the CEO getting on camera doing delivering a message. They have a creative services team that is a shared services group within these largest corporations that is actually, as I say, serving as that in-house advertising agency almost. So those are the clients. So if that's who we're producing the work for, and where the work is coming from, then how are all these other players supporting it? Now, ultimately, they want to get to you as quickly and as efficiently as possible. Historically, though, that would be through, as I said, the casting director, who is, kind of project managing. They would be working and sending that casting call out to talent agents who represented the talent, and still do, of course. Most, semi-pro or pro talent who have a roster of their clients, they also have a number of agents who often have a geographic market. I'm your agent for Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas. I'm your agent in Atlanta. If all the work comes in through Florida, I'm your agent in Miami. It's often geographically based, is what I've seen, and therefore it's this kind of non-exclusive, might be exclusive to the geography, but overall, most talent at the top of the game have multiple agents, and those that work is often done in studios, and so that's kind of, as I say, more of a it's an important part of the industry, but it more kind of harkens back to the past and kind of carrying forward. And I think they're in a lot of ways trying to understand, how do we also participate in an online marketplace? And I think that's what we refer to as voices.com, and really trying to bring the client and the talent together, and more recently, agents as well. So those are the people that make it up, but I just want to speak to, if I may, the concept around the marketplace itself. And ultimately, we're just facilitating the transactions by enabling the client and talent to do business together. Now, this is easier said than done, because the talent, many of you want as much visibility, publicity as possible. You want access to all of the opportunities, and of course, you want to get paid as much money as possible and complete the work simply, and take your time with the craft, but get it done and make that client happy. On the other hand, there's often some disconnect where there's different expectations from the client. Of course, they want to find the right voice for their project. They want to get it done quickly and easily. But what I think is sometimes challenging is there can be either communication or expectation differences. So we try to act and serve as that trusted intermediary between the talent and the client. We don't represent one side or the other. We're bridging that gap to facilitate that business online. And one of our guiding principles is to be as inclusive as possible The talent often come from a background of aspiring talent, people who are new to the business, getting their first project and first gig under their belt. Semi-pros or professionals as well who have built a career on voices. Talent agencies are now on voices.com because of that voice bank acquisition. We've migrated all those talent agencies, and all of the celebrities that that they represent are also on voices.com. But what is consistent though is that talent, it's more than having a great voice. Of course that's needed as well in terms of having a God-given gift of a great voice, but you all and then how to, like, these artistic skills of how to interpret script, you know, as they say, how to breathe that script to life. But you also need the technical skills. That is having a home-based studio, knowing how to edit quickly and efficiently and deliver a file. And again, nowadays, more than ever, so much of that work is being procured online because people don't want to or can't, because of certain restrictions, physically go into studios. So there's all the more relevance to the concept of home-based recording. One of the more challenging parts, though, is the marketing skills, and hopefully, again, that's what we're trying to provide, is that ability that talent can market themselves effectively online. I spoke to the clients, the ad agencies, SMBs, small, medium-sized businesses, for those who might be new to that acronym, and then these large global enterprises, and the titles that you might want to be looking for if you're prospecting through your network or on Twitter or something along those lines. These creative directors or video producers, and yes, of course, casting directors would be great people for you to look for. So hopefully you're literally getting our own playbook here. So hopefully you appreciate that and put that to good use as well. So if that's kind of the landscape of who the players are and a bit of, the recent past, let's just zoom out and talk about the market overview and how that's made up. I mentioned this $4 billion space. This industry is very unique in that it transcends all other industries. And meaning it's not that it's just the advertising industry. We don't just do voices for, and you do voices for media and entertainment companies. And it's not just for the financial services or professional services in terms of like consulting companies, accountants, and law firms. No, it's across everything. So that's what's really exciting, that the work is really different every day. What's driving change, of course, though, is new technologies, how work gets done. I touched on the voice applications and smart speakers. Newer things like virtual reality, until that kind of becomes mass adopted, I think it's got some way to go. But absolutely, in terms of games, gaming has been the fastest growing part of the entertainment industry for years, and continues to be so. And it's not just the US and Canada, it's around the world, from Europe and the Middle East, LATAM, so Latin America, and APAC, Asia Pacific as well too. So, there's voice talent in over 100 different languages available on voices.com, and clients hiring them in all those languages as well. And beyond the kind of, if you think of voiceover at the core, it's like the heart of the production. I like to believe there's often complementary skills that can be sought after as well. And so when we asked, and in fact surveyed our most successful talent on voices.com and asked them how are they building their business, they're finding ways to add on extra capabilities. It could be editing, it could be dubbing, where you're syncing to picture. It could be another language, and maybe even offering translation, or those value adds of making hints on, suggesting that script's not quite rolling well, or could be maybe misinterpreted. Of course, when you're built sufficient of a relationship with a client, you actually develop that rapport where they now see you as a trusted advisor for how their brand sounds. And so that's what I'm referring to with these multilingual opportunities. Everything's sourced. You guys can find this information online, but I figured I'd put it into one slide for you. So if it's a multi-billion-dollar space, where's that work kind of being divvied up? And we've come up with these original 12, and we've added on Voice Assistant just in the last year because there was actually a lot of requests coming for it. And voice assistant, it kind of pales in comparison in terms of the volume of work. It's some of the most interesting work, and honestly, an area we continue to see a lot of potential in. But out of these, from audiobooks to podcasting, and I mentioned gaming, the number one category, in case you're wondering, well, I see 13 on there, what has the most amount of work? The number one category is internet video. Business is admittedly a bit of a catch-all, so I'll say that it's up there as well. But internet video is by far the number one category of work. I was in the UK about a year and a bit ago and speaking with a video producer there, and he said they used to create these 20-minute long-form mini documentaries about a factory at a manufacturing facility, or the fields of this farm for some tractor company, and he would kind of this picture of these big swooping scenes, and he's like, nobody is going to sit through a 20-minute corporate video. Now, instead of one 20-minute video, it's about 20 1-minute videos, and often they're cut down even shorter than that. So the key there is that there's oftentimes, particularly with internet videos, especially if they're being used on social media, that they have such a short shelf life, unfortunately. They might sit on YouTube indefinitely, but often if they're used in these ads, there is really no reason to have kind of some in perpetuity usage on some of these internet videos for the advertisement portion of them. If it's a product video that's kind of explains something, it is going to live on forever, then that I get. But these advertisements, we're finding they're really only used for a few weeks, and then the campaign's done and it turns over. Because just like you, I look at a social feed, and if I've seen something once, I really don't need to see that ad again. And that's why even when you go to report an ad on social media, they say, oh, I've seen this too often. And I think that's kind of been fed back to a lot of these big brand advertisers to say, you got to keep your ads short and change them over very frequently. Always be telling a new story. And I think that actually bodes well for talent, because it just means there's an increased demand for all of that work. So those are the categories of work. Internet video, educational is, so internet video business is number 2, and then educational is the next one there, because of course there's two constituencies that need to be taught: employees and customers. And let's not forget about the customers. If a company is launching a product, not only do they need to have internal policies and procedures, they need to train people for compliance reasons constantly at large, again, financial institutions, healthcare companies. There's lots of internal training, but then there's the, how do we train our customers remotely? And you can do Zoom calls, you can do Skype sessions, go-to meetings or Hangouts, but sometimes it's just great to have a kind of a customer tutorial video, and I would still consider that educational in nature as well. So clearly lots of work to be had. Now, those are kind of the areas of work that's just a bit of a whirlwind of a landscape of the industry. The trends, though, what's changed in the last year? And I've got 5 of them I'm going to power through, and I think you'll find them pretty insightful. First off, as I kind of touched, it's the number 1 category of work at Voices, but digital audio is a theme, and particularly around these internet videos, they're surging in productions. Brands are embracing these short form ads and content, particularly for social media. Podcasts, brand marketers are realizing that, hey, rather than create an ad that is very short, it's done once on radio and TV, never to be heard from again, or I gotta, continue to put it in every new market. Podcasting is unique in the sense that those who are like super fans of a particular brand can go so deep, listening for 20, 30 minutes, an hour long at a time. And often there's a spokesperson from the company that can really tell these never been told before stories and take those customers along for a journey. So podcasting, many businesses are getting into podcasting because it's a great long form episodic storytelling format that differs from the short form kind of ads that you hear on radio or TV, or maybe pre-roll online for Spotify or maybe even YouTube. But podcasting differs. I would think of it as the long form equivalent. The short digital ads and then of course the short shelf life of internet videos, but the volume of work is dramatically increasing. On the flip side, traditional media is declining. Now, this is a survey of, I believe, 700 or 800 of our creative producers and brand marketers at voices.com. They're reporting to us, and we're seeing a decline in the job postings on these three categories. Declining because I think actually union work is declining. Union jobs at voices.com are down 90% in the last 2 years. And that just shows you, I think, that there is just this, secular shift from union to non-union, from celebrity to freelancer in a lot of cases, because the work lends itself best to an authentic talent and voice, and simultaneously budgets continue to get very constrained. Someone's not going to have a small medium-sized business is not going to have the same budget as a global brand, in which case they're not advertising on radio and TV. They're certainly not producing a movie trailer. That work continues to be concentrated in big geographic centers, namely Los Angeles in terms of the movie trailers, and is very dominated by a handful of talent. So, truthfully, we don't see a whole lot of that type of work on Voices. We do see a lot of radio and TV commercials, but far less than was ever done before. So while movie trailers and documentaries, they've been declining, as I say, over these last 2 years, this is the first time we saw a drop off in TV commercials. Perhaps that's the shift to Netflix, Hulu, Crave, HBO Online. I mean, you name it. There's lots of streaming services where, unless you're, why do people continue to subscribe to cable television? Mostly it's for news and it's for sports. Live sports is the only thing that you're not getting streaming on these services. So unless you're advertising to, that kind of demographic, which is a huge one, don't get me wrong, most of those ad dollars are shifting online into a more kind of pure play digital space. So it might look dire for media, but I think that really it's more of a shift from going from kind of traditional broadcast and onto these streaming services. So when we asked our brand advertisers, advertising agencies, well, who are they trying to reach? They're trying to reach Gen X and baby boomers. They grew as the most important target, but millennials seem to still kind of capture the eyes and ears of those advertisers as being the most promising, because I think two factors playing at hold. Millennials are very tech savvy. In fact, there's a new generation, Gen Z, coming up behind them. But for the time being, and we'll include that in this year's survey, but for the time being, millennials are, I would say, the most tech savvy, spend most time online, and are the beneficiaries of a wealth transfer from these inheritances from the baby boomers as well too. So I think that is why ad dollars are being invested to actually target millennials. So if you have that voice, and one big takeaway for all of you talent out there is advertisers want to hire a voice that sounds like their target demographic. People, because on the flip side, people want to buy from people who sound like them. And so that's why I'm sharing this information in terms of not only the medium, but the age. And so it's important to kind of lean into these age ranges and so forth. If you really excel in one, don't try to be someone you're not. Be authentic. And I think the opportunity is certainly there for each of those age categories. As I said, those ages, if that's who the brand advertisers are trying to target, well, we've seen that in the volume of job postings that are coming in. And so really kind of between middle age and young adult, that's kind of this classic 80-20 rule, the Pareto principle, for those that might be familiar with that. This 80-20 rule playing out, that 80% of all the job postings that come to voices.com are between 18 to 35, and then that next age range up, 35 to 54. Now, interesting though, I did want to mention that teen and child voices seem to be rising in popularity because they effectively reach a different generation, that Gen Z as well, and these digital natives all they know is a world that is completely connected, always on, Wi-Fi always available, for free, it seems like, wherever they go. And so that could be in the term, in the term of games. It could be other, again, this educational content as well too. So I just wanted to mention that it seems to be actually one of the faster growing areas over the last year. So let's talk about pay. And when we conducted the analysis, we're really happy to report that women actually, we've closed this kind of pay gap and opportunity gap between men and women. Women actually make more than men on a job by job basis. So if you take all the jobs and you kind of average what's the average pay per job, women are making slightly more. So there is not this huge pay gap at all. In fact, I think that's a huge achievement as well. It seems to be marginally more jobs do go to men, but women are they actually are increasing their share from overall 44% of all the jobs to up to 46% of all the jobs. Now, naturally, women are going to win more of the telephone system recordings. Voice assistant jobs are almost always going to women, with females being paid a third more for those voice assistants. And then we look at, in fact, actually, there seems to be a heightened demand for women on TV spots because women are often referred to as the buying center of the home and control a lot of that economic output, in which case, again, people want to buy from people that sound like them. So if women are controlling, the spend for the family and the household, then advertisers are trying to reach their ideal audience by working with women to deliver that message and hopefully connect with them on an emotional level. And that's as well why those women are getting paid, again, a third more there. Now, it might be obvious, but naturally, again, as historically has been the case, men are winning the trailers, the documentaries, a lot of the video games, and so there's kind of some natural fall depending on the medium, but it's nothing is exclusive. It's usually some portion is going to men and some portion is going to women. Okay, so let's talk about the future and where I see things going. And you'll have to permit me to do this through the lens of voices.com because I think that's the one I know best. And I think I'm going to be able to provide a perspective on that. We continue to invest literally millions upon millions of dollars in innovating on the platform annually. So we're going to continue to improve both existing technologies that we have, and I'll kind of break these down very briefly, as well as exploring new product offerings. And so our business model, as I've always told our team, is based on shared success. And that shared success is with you as the talent. If you're not successful, then you're not going to continue to be engaged and join, and that means there's not going to be great talent available for the clients. And the only way that you're going to be successful, it actually all starts with the job posting. And so we spend most of our time and energy, truthfully, on trying to get these job postings onto voices.com, doing the types of things, targeting the same kinds of organizations I described here today, the ad agencies, the producers, the casting directors, and so forth. I don't think there's any secret there, but I figured I would let you know that's where we're trying to spend most of our time, because we know ultimately that's going to make you as a talent the happiest and most successful. So our business is based on shared success. We have 3 different tiers of subscription plan. The guest membership is free, and then unlocking some premium features as well as a top tier for the platinum subscription. On the client side, similarly, we've been building out additional capabilities. It's always free for the client to sign up. They can post jobs and then hire talent through the platform. But we found that there's some needs that that clients have in terms of consolidated billing, advanced reporting, additional security measures, additional kind of customer service and account management that they're looking for. And so we've developed a suite of features and that we've kind of packaged into what we call Voices Plus, and then Voices Enterprise on top of that. You can read about those on our website, but I figured I'd mention them so that there's this model of connecting, and then people are on each of those groups of customers are on different tiers of plans. But the bedrock to all of that is this technology platform. And under it, it all kind of starts with this database. But I'll get to that. Let me start from the top down. What you see most, really day in, day out, if you've ever visited the website or downloaded a mobile app, you're seeing the user interface. And that's just the most, the top layer. It's where you experience things. It's the button clicks. It's when things open and close. It's filters. You click play button. That's all the user interface, everything you see. Now, underneath that, there's business logic. And that business logic is things that are kind of like rules and conditions of how the website works and operates. And so, for instance, I'll talk about actually one that I think is interesting is voice search. At present, voice search, the way that we order the search results is using what's called an algorithm. And this is really just a set of rules. Just like Google has a search algorithm that puts the Google search results in a certain order, Voices has a certain algorithm that we use as well. And so there are rules that say, okay, the platinum talent are going to be grouped first in the search results, then the premium talent, and then the guest memberships, as an example. There's some other, obviously we do keyword analysis and so forth and try to surface up the right talent for any given search, but that is a piece of technology. So I refer to all of these as business logic. There's kind of a set of rules underneath that we try to design in the most equitable way possible that delivers the right voice to the talent as quickly as possible. And what's powering all of that business logic is this continuous feedback loop of the data and all the data and the activity that's on the website of talent that are engaged, that are active on a daily or weekly basis, of clients that are posting jobs. What are they really looking for? How can we create a product that allows them to easily rehire somebody that they work with in the past? So it's this, as I say, this feedback loop to become smarter and smarter over time. Sometimes that's referred to as machine learning, where the system is kind of learning and getting better and smarter. So there's that goes on, but then there's also our analytics, which is the analysis. Sometimes, just like much of the analysis that we've provided in the presentation today, that we'll conduct a deep dive analysis about a particular problem that we see happening, or maybe something's not quite working as expected, and we'll do a one-off analysis. And so we have an analytics team that works just to solve those kind of big data type problems. But all of that works together. So as you can see, this is far evolved. What maybe some of you might have once thought is kind of what is voices.com. It's more than just a website. There's various mobile apps, these technology layer, and then underneath that, this data and analytics layer. So setting that up, you might say, well, I think more in terms of like a workflow. I think in terms of a workflow, how does it work? And so those, again, many of you likely know, but for those who have yet to kind of experience this or just want a quick recap, we've tried to build a really simple and repeatable process that is powered by this technology, ultimately helping the clients to hire you as the talent. So as I said earlier, it all starts with clients posting a job, and then we match that job posting up with the most qualified talent. And so how we do that is the client is often saying the language, the accent, the age range, the gender, the role. Do I need you to sound like a sports announcer or a school professor or a superhero or a villain? And then the style. Do you sound funny or witty? Are you, believable? Are you authentic? Kind of this artistic direction. We take all of those inputs that are available on the job posting. The client specified what they're looking for, and we match them up against the profiles of the talent. And we invite, as best as possible, the most qualified people to that job. And those invitations go out. If you've ever received an invitation, you actually get what's called a voice match score. That's a score out of 100. And it's, again, you can look in our help section. There's Really no secrets here. We do break it down. You can type in voice match into Google or in our help section. You'll see how that score is calculated. But in effect, it's 10 points for every one of those criteria. And the reason that's important is twofold. One, it lets you know, hey, based on the volume of jobs, we think this one's actually a pretty good fit for you. The other, so it would encourage you to actually do the audition. The other reason is when a client logs into their account out of and to actually listen to those auditions, we've ordered them from highest to lowest voice match. This is really important distinction. Some talent think, no, it's just first come, first serve. Whoever's in there's quickest, just throw up whatever audition. In fact, we stopped that practice probably, again, 8 or 9 years ago, because it was doing a disservice to the talent. They're not winning any jobs unless you did a solid audition for the client. It was doing a disservice to the client. They're going, I gave you my script and this person uploaded their commercial demo. So that is not effective whatsoever. And so how we overcame that was we said, not only is it, it's not just first come, first serve, it's a quality match is really what voice match is. And then if there's a bunch of people who are 100% and a bunch of people who are 90, the tiebreaker of, well, how do we order all the hundreds? The tiebreaker does go based on the time and date stamp down to the second of when that audition was uploaded. That we felt was the most fair way to do it, of breaking out the time and date stamp. If you were faster and you gave a great read, we're going to reward that by placing it higher up within each bracket, all the hundreds, then all the 90s, then all the 80s, and so on and so forth. So that's how the audition ordering works. As well as kind of what you see when you receive it. And again, can't underscore enough how important that voice match score is. And that's based on the information in your profile. So have great profiles. Clients are then going to select the talent. And this actually is our key piece of patented technology, is what we call SurePay. And so going back again, years and years ago, more than 10 years ago, what we were finding was that we were advising talent to always get 50% of the money up front. I mean, there was no, it was purely almost like a directory. We connect kind of buyer and seller together. There was no payment system or mechanism at any kind at the time at Voices. And what we were finding is, despite advising talent that, hey, you guys really should ask for 50% up front, and some people would go ahead and just deliver the files, and then, you know, most would get paid, sure. So unfortunately, too many didn't. And because they didn't get paid, then they would come back to us and go, hey, can you chase down this client? And we're like, well, how? I mean, we've got an email. What precisely would you like us to do? I mean, I can put in a complaint at the Better Business Bureau. We don't have a lot of information about who that client is and where they live even. And so they could have been around the world or around the corner. And this lack of payment was creating a problem. Similarly, there really wasn't a good way to build out a ratings and review system that wasn't based on an actual financial transaction. You know, I don't want to build something and offer a platform that just is kind of a popularity contest where people like each other as being the only way that you sort anything out. Instead, the ratings and reviews allow talent to actually, as you can build up a reputation online as well too. And hopefully that creates a positive feedback loop for you, where clients can see the work that you've done in the past and who's hiring you and for what and so forth. So all of that is to say that there really was this problem that we need to solve the payment issue. And I've heard from many of you, you frankly want to be voice talent. You don't want to be accounts payable and accounts receivable. And so what we built was a mechanism where when the client hires you, they can click literally the button that says hire. They're presented with a credit card form, which I'll show you in just a minute, where you've not only put in your audition, you said how much you're willing to do the work for, and then we're adding on our transaction fee, which is a 20% transaction fee. So the client sees an all-in number, and they can enter in their credit card form, their payment details immediately, which allows us to hold the money in advance in what we refer to as an escrow account. It's a separate account from operations. It's completely discrete, and all of the funds for talent payments are held there. Now, just given the fact that I have the opportunity to mention, there is zero benefit to us holding the funds longer. In fact, it's a liability to us because it's actually owed to you. It's your money. It's a non-interest bearing account. We don't earn any money. There's literally nothing in it for us to hold the money. In fact, I'd rather pay the talent and get as quickly as possible. It makes you happy, and that's what prompts those all important ratings and reviews as well too. So the key part of this payment is that the client is selecting the talent, and that's you. They're making the payment in advance, and we're holding it in trust until the work is complete. Then you have the peace of mind going that you can do the work. You're guaranteed to get paid. We've done hundreds and hundreds of thousands of transactions like this. We've never missed a payment. We've never missed a payment. Sometimes there's questions of, maybe there's something wrong with the project. There's a dispute. The client wasn't happy with the work, or the talent, either got sick, went on vacation, unable to deliver by the deadline. Sometimes refunds need to be happening, or I'm talking like 1 in 1,000. It's very rare. But even in that situation, we've actually opted to still pay the talent for the full amount because that's what they agreed to, and it keeps the integrity of the whole system. If you feel otherwise, let me know, because I want to make sure that it's working as intended and as designed. But I'm really proud of this because I think it's solved a major issue of facilitating payments to voice talent online. So then it becomes up to you to deliver the files. You're working out of your, most likely in your own home recording studio, of reading that final script. And then you upload those files back to voices.com, where the client can listen to them, download them. They can approve them if they need to, but really, as soon as they download them, they're good to go, and the payment is dispersed or sent to you for a job well done. And that last step is, because it is a job well done, then we have the ratings and reviews, which is this kind of voice rank technology, where you could show up on the top 100 most recently hired. You can show up on the most listens this week, the most favorited talent. So all of that top 100 is what's, again, I refer to being powered by VoiceRank. So that's how it all works. If you need to, perhaps this will be recorded at one point, and you can go back and re-listen to that, but hopefully you enjoyed that, debrief. Now, over the years, we've built out two sides of the business, and I think we've done this as best we could. I don't think we got it right at the beginning. I think there's been it's been a bit of a bumpy roll, but I think we've come a long way, certainly in the last, call it 4 to 5 years. And our commitment to you is building a transparent company of how the fees break down. And so I'm going to show you that now. There's two types of jobs on voices.com. There are self-service jobs, and then there are full service jobs that are managed by our professional services group. So let's first talk about self-service, and then we'll go to the full service jobs. On self-service, as I said, sometimes there's this question of, oh, does the client know that they're being charged at 20%? Absolutely. They get on, then they click hire, as I mentioned, and it says it gives them an option to actually fill out their credit card details, and it says who's they're hiring, the talent fee, then that's the amount that you put in the quote, and then we're adding on the platform fee of 20%. We describe what it is, how it benefits the client, and then they see a total in the correct currency. We're also a multi-currency company as well right now, but you'll see that it's, again, almost all of them are in US dollars, except in rare situations. But nonetheless, the client is seeing the total amount and the breakdown. Then they click confirm and pay, and that would be exactly what's charged to their credit card. So the self-service job is this kind of do-it-yourself offering. The clients are finding the talent on their own. This is by far the most popular approach. In fact, it's been a huge thrust of mine to push a lot of the work that should be on the platform, just push it to the platform. We refer to that internally as our platform first strategy. And so as high as kind of on a daily or weekly basis, as many as 90% of the jobs, they're self-service. That is definitely where most of the work is going. Now, for those who haven't heard the story, in our earliest days, we actually started as purely self-service. And what happened was we actually got two contacts, two emails that happened more or less on the same day. One from one from a large, well, actually, they're both from very large companies. I wouldn't necessarily feel comfortable mentioning their name now, but when things happen in twos and threes, then your ears tend to perk up and realize there might be onto something. They were both asking more or less the same thing. They said that they found talent on voices.com and they wanted to hire them. However, we had to first get on their vendors list. And then and that included filling out some paperwork, and we would be in effect the vendor in this particular engagement, in which case, okay, send us over the agreement. One of the agreements literally came in a FedEx box, not a FedEx envelope, a box. That's how big it was. And that type of thing continues to happen even to this day, where companies have agreements that they want us to sign. The other thing was that when it came time to payment, they weren't able to, a creative producer at a large company, like one of these global enterprises, isn't exactly going to whip out a credit card and just charge it to their personal credit card. They also don't have a company issued credit card. So the way that work gets done there is that they need to send a purchase order. And a purchase order is really authorization of that company that that individual can purchase something, that they can buy. So I think it's like permission to buy is really what you think of as a purchase order. So they're going to send us a purchase order, and then we get that. It's like, okay, they said they're going to do business with us. Here's the evidence as such. Then we send them an invoice, and that invoice might take 30, 60, 90 days to get paid. And all the while, if you remember, Voices is paying out the talent the moment that when the work is completed. We issue payments every Friday. So when the work's done, you're getting paid the next Friday. So even though we're waiting, because we sent out an invoice and we're waiting to get paid, we're still paying out the talent in a prompt manner because you did the work. And so that was kind of so we have a legal or a vendor requirement, then we have a financial requirement, and then the last one would be, I would call it the complexity factor. And these aren't the type of company or organization that's typically working with our professional services team is not a small business that wants their phone system recorded. It's not a 1-minute explainer video on YouTube. What I'm referring to in most situations are, 10 hours of content in 10 different languages. There was a project that was we just completed last week that had 2,500 files. I mean, that's the type of scope of work I'm trying to describe. It's very large in scale, and so they're not all like that, but that is increasingly where I'm trying to shepherd the company, that the professional services team works only on those ones, and then everything else is self-service, which is why you see 90% of the jobs being self-service. Now the question comes down to this theme of this slide is around transparency. And the question is do the clients see a breakdown? Because we don't know if the clients see a breakdown. They do. They see a breakdown at 2 stages. Their quote, which is when we're scoping out the whole project, if it's 100 hours of audio recording, oh, and they also need translation. So we got to now partner up with the translation provider, an ISO certified translation provider. They need it in 10 languages. It's a tight timeline. All of these factors, we're scoping that project and providing a quote. And so they see the line item breakdown. Literally, this is a screenshot of a quote. That's why I have in the corner source documents or internal documents. We send that quote, and then they say yes. Then we create what's called a statement of work, and that statement of work is really the quote regurgitated, if you will, but it is done in an electronic document format that they can digitally sign. And so the client is absolutely seeing the breakdown. They know the services that they're receiving, who's getting paid what, and the value that they're receiving for each of those items. So that is, again, I will be the first to say that has not always been the case, but it's certainly been the case in the last 3 or 4 years, which is why I think things have really improved at Voices, that we've been able to establish a lot of discipline, partly because now we have a board of directors, we have external shareholders, we have audited financial statements and so forth. So there's all this rigor and professionalism that has been instilled into the company that I think we've really matured in a great way over the last number of years. So that's our commitment to transparency in the future. We're also committed to offering a safe platform, which we refer to as E for Everyone. Now, this is, again, speaking to the video game labeling of what's kind of acceptable content. I feel like we've actually been a bit ahead of our time on this one, because this notion of having brand safe material, big brands want to know that when they post a job at Voices, that their script is going to be beside other reputable organizations. And so we've actually come up with content guidelines to say, hey, generally speaking, we think most stuff should go through. There's not going to be a problem with it. That said, there's enough, I'll be blunt, there's enough garbage out there on the internet. We don't want to be part of it. I don't think many of you want to be part of it either. And so what we have developed are these content guidelines, which really is filtering out content that we don't think is going to uplift and edify and inspire the world. Things around extreme violence or adult content, profane material, racism, hate speech, or these false impersonations, which have actually come up around political season, where there is this concept called deep fakes. And if you need to Google that, write it down, you can Google it later. In effect, that's putting words into somebody's mouth where you see them on camera talking. They didn't say those words, but they've hired an impersonator to actually make it sound like they're saying it, or they've somehow digitally manipulated it. We don't want any part of that. Even if it means that we're not going to lose business, I am all for that. In fact, I think, and I've even been told by many of the biggest brands that use Voices, they appreciate that these type of safeguards are in place. I think it's on the whole, one more business for all of you talent than any that could be possibly turned away. So this is the same slide we show to all of our employees on day one of employee onboarding, to make sure that they're comfortable with that. And in fact, you know, everyone is like relieved. They like to be part of an organization that stands for something, and that is good, wholesome content online. So what is new upcoming at Voices? We've got a lot, dozens and dozens of features that are coming in the next couple months. One of the things I think if I may, I think our approach has always been to, in terms of product improvements, is what I would refer to as, you know, almost like incrementalism. Like, we make small, sometimes noticeable, sometimes not noticeable changes, but small incremental improvements that refine and continue to modernize the look, feel, and functionality of Voices. So one of the most popular pages is this job list page. As an example, we noticed that we didn't have some key information that you could kind of quickly scan, namely the word count and finish minutes. So when over the last couple months, actually, I've spoken with 100 of our top talent at voices.com, many of them the platinum and premium members, and I've asked them, how do you look at jobs? How do you sort them? What do you go after first? And some of the things that came up out of that was most people agree, I don't just look at the budget first. I mean, yes, I do, but I need to see that in context of how many words, what's the time commitment to get this done? Things like knowing how many other people have responded, what is the deadline date, this type of information, and then having that artistic direction up front, and then being able to go deep into the job details of kind of better categorizing or modularizing the actual page layout, separating the performance details of kind of what that client is looking for, what that producer is looking for. Again, the role, the style, and so forth, the audience of who you'd be speaking to, and separating that from, let's call that the metadata, around the finished minutes, the job deadline, whether it was a full service or self-service job. That's nice to know, but irrelevant to the performance itself. So we've got performance details on one side, and then these kind of job meta details on the other side. That is just, 2 examples of some really exciting stuff I think that we have coming up in another several months. It seems that we've got really it seems to be either every week or every 2 weeks in terms of an update. Those of you who are already part of Voices, you probably see those emails come out. So, and then usually accompanied by a video that kind of walks through it all. So that's what we've got upcoming. I know that was a whirlwind of information, but hopefully you found it to be beneficial. Maybe I'll give Bill an opportunity to kind of hop back on camera at this time. But I will just close off by saying I really appreciate the opportunity to give my perspective on the industry. Hopefully, clear some things up for you, or show you how it works, and then receive my commitment to making it better all the time. So thanks again for the opportunity. All right, Bill, back to you.
This has been fantastic, David. Thank you so much. And for those of us who work, in the trenches with our nose to the grindstone, you've allowed us to kind of stand up and look around and get a good look at the layout, and given us a map and a compass to follow, which will make us, I think, much more effective and efficient in what we do. And you've been very generous with your time as well. Thank you for that. I know Fred Gleek is standing by to see if there was maybe a question or two that came through that wasn't addressed that we should throw in there. Fred, if you're there, I'm going to throw it over to you.
There's a lot of questions. I could keep you here, David, for the next 3 hours. So, I'm just looking here. Bill, why don't you do a little dancing here? So I want to try and pick out what I think makes sense.
A highlighter too. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, I got it. So David was asking, how do personal invites work? Why have I gotten a few? And other than answering as quickly as possible, is there anything else I should keep in mind with a personal invite?
So a personal invite is when a client conducts a search or navigates kind of through our directory and then lands either in the search results and they click invite to job right on kind of your listing there, or they actually end up on your profile and they can also click invite to job. So think of that as a one-to-one relationship. The client's inviting, they're handpicking you. So absolutely, it would be strongly recommended to respond to those as quickly as possible, because they've done the work up front. They've listened to a number of talent and then they invited you. How to get more of those? I think it's really around optimizing your profile as much as you can. We can talk more about that, or you can read on the website, but that's really how to get more of those. But aside from that, there's sometimes, and I will share, sometimes there's this situation where a client initially posts the job to a number of people, and then you individually, and then opens it up for more. So sometimes you kind of see this hybrid type job, but most of the time it's either a private or personal invitation, or it's like a public kind of voice match job. It's really one or the other, but that's how they work. They come from search or from your profile.
Gotcha. I got another one here from Eileen, which I think is good. You, in the course of the presentation, one of the slides that you put up had to do with the age demographic of clients that you're appealing to. And so Eileen's question kind of relates to that. She says, is this why maybe it's good not to put your age on the site and listings? Do you have to post a range? So the whole idea is, like Bill, for example, he may be 60 some years old now, but he sounds like a young pup, So what about that as it relates? Yeah, exactly. So how does that work? Should we reveal ages? Is it range oriented? How does that work?
Yeah, the ages are age ranges, and we often try to describe that as the age that your voice sounds like or the age that you can perform. And so the only time you're ever listing your age is actually on a demo by demo basis. It's really more of a descriptor of the demo as opposed to your actual age in reality, if you will. So if you can perform a number of different age ranges, I would always encourage you, demos are free to upload. So I'll upload as many as you want. You're really just, I kind of sometimes describe it as like putting stakes in the ground. You're covering more ground within the search by having multiple demos in different age ranges. Same thing goes with the categories. If you have one demo that's just a commercial demo, could it be broken up, or do you have enough material to have a radio demo that's separate from your TV demo? Even though they're both commercials, you're covering more ground is the best way I could describe it.
Gotcha. Now, another question here from an A. Johnson, who says, you talked about the internal algorithm and how jobs get distributed based on that scoring system. And he's asking, or she's asking, I'm not sure if male or female, when matching voices, is it laid out so that the premium members get the work first? Is there a leg up for having the higher levels of membership?
Yeah, the answer is no. We don't. We've been asked to do that, but we've not found a need to do that. So the only time that the platinum membership, which is the top tier membership, has a priority is in the search results. That is the only time that there's a distinguish or kind of, let's call it a priority placement. But the audition ranking or who gets access to jobs first, it's all at the same time. It doesn't, premium members and platinum members, platinum members, which again, that top tier, don't get more auditions than anyone else. We've thought about that. I'm not sure. It's just another one of these tensions between what's best for the talent needs to also be best for the client. And I've found over the years that as much as possible, delivering up a variety of auditions that meet the needs of the client as closely as possible as like what they've described is the better approach, as opposed to just, arbitrarily giving, super priority treatment because of a top tier paid subscription. So no, it doesn't affect the number or placement of the or first mover of the auditions.
Gotcha. I've got a few more here, and again, thank you very much for your time. So Tim's asking, does voices.com provide any guidance regarding how much voice talent should charge depending on the size of the job and the major category that it falls within?
Yeah. So rates is probably one of the hottest topics because there's in some ways such variety, and it does come down to some personal preference. Now, I'm going to have a bit of so I'll give you the short answer. Yes, if you go to the bottom of every page on the voices.com website, there's a little link that says rates, and you can see a rate sheet there. You can even download a PDF, print it, mark it up, so you can kind of have, if you think it's too low or too high, you can make it your own. So there's a rate sheet there. Now, some of you might have heard this story before, kind of where we even came up with that. In the earliest days, because it was actually, as I say, it was a hot topic, it was the #1 most frequently asked question on our site by far. When we look at kind of the support tickets that come in, the #1 question from the whole community, the whole user base, was, on the talent saying, what do I charge? And the clients go, how much does it cost? And so that's what kind of made this the #1 question. The rate sheet was our answer to, frankly, solving our own, our own challenge of like, how do we answer this in a consistent way? And so we actually surveyed, again, I'm going back a long time here, but we surveyed the talent. We tried to rounded off into some, meaningful, either specific amount or more likely a range, which is what you'll see today for every category of work. There's a range rather than us being too prescriptive. I never want to tell you exactly what to charge. I think that is a very personal choice. And some people have found, like, over time, that some categories seem a bit off market, so we've updated them. So we've tried to make it a routine that we update the rate sheet about once a year. There's no date on the calendar or anything. It's just like, oh, it seems like it's an overdue project. We better get at her again. But if our rate sheet is, dare I say, overly simplistic, there's the other rate sheets that are out there. I think it's the GVAA one, or the Global Voice Acting Academy, if I believe is one that you can look at. There's the union rates if you want to see those. I found them very detailed and very complex, and one of our values actually is simplicity, about being clear in our communication, offering a frictionless experience, allowing people to make decisions as quickly as possible. And so I recognize it lacks some of the detail, but we've purposely tried to keep it as clean, as simple as possible. But the short answer is, yep, there's a rate sheet that at least would be kind of a jumping off point, that's been updated based on actual rates that talent are charging through the platform.
Now, David, I got two more for you because, again, thanks for your time. I wanted to mention this one because in our group, Bill and I hear this quite a bit, so I just wanted to see how you handle it. It relates to the concept of pickups, re-recordings. Christopher says, in a self-service job, after talent submits and delivers files, can the client reject the recording and ask for a re-recording?
Can they? Well, I mean, they do have an ability to request an edit. However, I'm not sure that I would find that, exactly kosher if you've done the whole thing. I mean, I would want to understand what the client's,
rationale.
like, yeah, like, well, why? Like, give me. Usually, and again, the talent might want to first understand. If I were to be put in that position, I would understand, well, is it my performance, or did you rewrite the script?
Right.
And I think that is the fork in the road that you need to understand. I see Bill nodding here, because I mean, look, if it's my performance, and again, I'm not a talent. I'm a recording engineer and a terrible one at that. But if it's my performance, then I want to earn your business and please you. It seems to be where the line is crossed is when there's wholesale re-records because of a script rewrite. And then it's a matter of having a conversation. Now, I appreciate that the question came up because this had been enough of a problem where there is a miscommunication. Remember that, that slide, or these two slides, and they often have, you guys have different needs and desires than maybe the client. And the client's going to want you to do unlimited forever. Let me come back to you after the job. I hired you and come back. Oh, I need another change to another change. Somewhere there needs to be an ability for you to discuss, or at least state, what you think is acceptable. And so we came up with this idea, what we referred to as a revision policy. So right at the audition stage, we mentioned there's actually really three parts. There's your audition, which is the audio file, the quote of how much you're willing to do the work for and how much you want to get paid. And then the third part is a proposal, which is a brief, if you will, cover letter of why you're the best one for the job. Often talent are describing their availability. You're describing, maybe past similar clients that you work with, that you can deliver a read, these type of things. We found that many talent were actually typing in this concept of like, and I'm willing to do unlimited, revisions you know, to get it right, so long as the script doesn't change. However, should the script change, then we'll have to discuss an additional payment, or it'll be $100 per additional, you know, revision. This goes back to these analytics, this data and analytics. So when you see something happen literally thousands of times, then you realize we need to have a better way to solve this. So just a couple weeks ago, now there's the proposal, and there's a little box where you can free form text, type out that revision policy. We're not screaming about it at the top where the client's having to figure out the equivalent of legalese, if you know what I'm saying. But at the same time, it provides you with what I refer to as a forcing function. Should the client come back to you and go, oh, can I do this now the umpteenth time because the vice president of parking lots heard the recording and they want to change the script? Well, you know, at some point you need to be able to say, look, the original agreement said I would do these if the script didn't change. So as I said, it provides a forcing function for you to have that conversation, and you need to be bold and have that conversation if you feel, and clients for the most part are really good about it. They respect you as a professional, they respect your time, but it provides, yet again, another one of those safeguards is just having, and it can be 2 sentences, having some concept of a revision policy that you can state that up front.
I think that's a good and a very complete answer. Now, for my final question, David, I don't think you know this about me, but having grown up overseas, I'm partial to questions like this from my buddy Eddie McDermott, who can't, of course, be Irish. But he asks the question: can a generic, non-regional, professional Irish voiceover talent make money on voices.com?
Well, I would love to believe that every talent can, and I think, you know, it seems like the question is specific to a language and a dialect.
Yes.
You know, and I think what we've heard and understood is that there are those other needs to be successful. Yes, the voice, and just because you're in a particular region of the world, I would never view that, in my opinion, as a detriment. In fact, you would be surprised how often North Americans want to hire Eastern Europeans or somebody in Ireland or the UK. You would be surprised how often that happens, because this perception of a exotic sound to a North American ear, that it almost has this like luxury brand attribute. So that would be kind of one thing. I would never view, I mean, I'll get real with you, that would be like me thinking, well, I grew up in a small town in Northern Canada, can I ever start a business? Because I mean, so I think that the world is a big place and there's lots of opportunity. I would encourage you to think as big as possible. And there's those other factors, the recording capabilities, those kind of technical success criteria, as well as the marketing and communications, and, you know, being a good all-around person that you can connect with those clients. Those are the 3 things. I think now more than ever, location or where you grew up or where you came from is virtually irrelevant. And in my opinion, I think there's enough opportunity to go around.
My suspicion is that Eddie is the perfect voice for the right client. Bill, back to you.
All right. Well, and regardless of whether you're a student who was attending my class and joined us, or came because you got an email from me, we're really glad that you're here tonight. And let me just quickly mention, if you're interested in finding out more about that class, I think Fred actually put the website in the chat, which is voiceovertrainingnow.com. And our very special thanks to David Ciccarelli. Thanks for your leadership and for really, again, leveraging technology and your expertise to give opportunities for folks like us to do what we do from home. So thank you for that. Thanks for your time with us, and look forward to talking to you again soon, and all the best to you guys.
Thanks, David.
Thanks, guys.
Night, everyone.
Got it. Night.